Here we are, yeah, another one, another 2-pounder on the old sea rig. I had to change up the baits there. I went to the Baby Destroyer. Found us another one. How to fish a Carolina rig, one of my favorite techniques. Yes, I said favorite because there's a lot of people that hate and despise a Carolina rig. That's just craziness to me. So I've got 2 baits that I predominantly fish on a Carolina rig. If you're wondering how to tie the Carolina rig, we did a separate video on that, and I'll have to say, pardon the boat wakes out here because it's summertime, and that's when you throw a Carolina rig. You can throw a Carolina rig pretty much year round. But a Carolina rig works really well year-round. We did a whole video on how to tie the thing. We're not going to recreate that, but there's basically 2 types of baits that I throw on a Carolina rig. Creature bait with action, Baby Destroyer is probably my #1 choice there, and it probably gets the call for me most of the time. Or you want to have a short, straight worm, Missile Baits Quiver 4.5 or the 6.5, you want a little longer bait. That's going to be more of a subtle bait, no action to it. Sometimes they really want that, and you get more bites on that. Sometimes they want the bait with action. So just kind of keep that in mind. We might switch back and forth. But I've got a 3/4 ounce weight on this Carolina rig, and I've got about a 3-foot leader to that little quiver. I use 20-pound Sunline on the front, and then I'll put that either to probably 14-pound Sunline shooter on the leader. That's kind of what we usually do. 7-foot 3-inch Cashin medium heavy rod. You want at least a 7-foot rod to throw a Carolina rig. I would say 7.3 is kind of optimal. That's kind of the perfect length. 7.6 flipping sticks, a little too much wood, a little too much power, and then a high-speed reel for sure. Daiwa Tatula 100, just good standard a reel. But enough about the setup. You want to know how to fish this thing. So casting it is the first step. It is not like a traditional lure. You've got the ball and chain, as they like to call it. You've got all the weight is in that leader on the weight. So you're gonna have to get it behind where you're gonna throw it, and you're just basically gonna lob it out there. But you can lob that thing a long way. So I've got it right there. I'm just gonna slowly lob it like that. And it went 80, 100 feet out there pretty easily. When you really get to zipping a Carolina rig, really put some weight into it, you can throw them way over 100 feet, 120, 150 feet. I'm talking long cast. That's a good thing, right? You can cover good amounts of water with that Carolina rig. It's gonna fall down to the bottom fast, but when we're talking about how to fish that Carolina rig, when your weight hits the water, you wanna count how long it takes to get to the bottom. So whether you threw in 2 feet of water, you threw in 10 feet of water, or whether you threw out in an abyss of 30 or 40 feet of water by accident, you threw off the side of the point and you didn't even know it because you weren't, your angles were a little off. You threw out there. If you pay attention to your weight and watch that weight, you can watch that line and see how long it takes to get to the bottom. We're talking probably, it's gonna fall probably a foot for like every half a second. So for every second you're looking at about 2 feet roughly on a Carolina rig that's got some heavy weight to it. But there I can feel with that fluorocarbon line, I can feel there's all kinds of rocks where I just threw. I idled over this point with my Lowrance units. It's not like I guessed. I knew there was some stuff out there, but I have thrown right into the goods. And that's the great thing about a Carolina rig. You can feel the cover that you're fishing. And if you notice, my rod position is down and I'm doing little short sweeps. That's all you want to do, because you can feel exactly what that bait's doing. And I stay in a position ready to set the hook as soon as I feel a bite and I know one's swimming off with it. So I'm going to be just doing these short sweeps, keeping the rod at a little bit of an angle. And the deal with keeping it at that slight angle is that I can feel tension from the line against all those micro guides on this Cashin rod. I can feel every little thing down there through the rod, and it goes through the handle into my hand. That fluorocarbon line, again, it's a must when you're fishing a Carolina rig. I remember like 20 plus years ago when I was fishing a Carolina rig, the fluorocarbon was just starting to come out. Everything else was mono. And so I had really gotten used to throwing monofilament line on a Carolina rig. The second that I put fluorocarbon line on my rod with a Carolina rig, I never, ever went back. Fluorocarbon is so much more dense, hence it's going to be a lot more sensitive. That's a huge, huge deal when you're fishing that Carolina rig, is that sensitivity, being able to feel rocks versus bites versus taps. You can feel, perch and bluegill bites versus bass. It is a big deal, because what happens a lot of times with the Carolina rig is those bass will bite the bait, and then you're dragging the rocks, and a lot of times you don't feel the bite because the fish came up and sucked the bait in, and he's sitting there, and then as you're pulling, he's swimming really slowly. So you're feeling the bottom with the weight, but the fish is sitting there with the bait in his mouth. So the best way to describe that type of bite is it just feels mushy. That kind of bite just feels mushy, and if it is, the best thing to do is just to lift your rod tip up so that you pull the weight off the bottom. And if it still has a little more tension than normal and you don't feel that weight settle back down, then once you got it in his mouth, and you're gonna reel down and set the hook. So hopefully we'll get you to a fish catch on here in a minute, and I'll show you how to set the hook. But again, in order to get that cast, I'm gonna pull my line out here, let it settle, and then I'm gonna zing it all the way out there. A lot of people just get in a hurry, try to snap it. I've seen the Carolina rig tie knots in itself just because you try to snap set it or snap throw it. You'll get a knot in your leader from where the bait just spins around. It'll tie a knot in itself. You're just weakening the leader. Not a good scenario. But again, I threw out there, I probably threw in about 8 feet. That would be my guess, 8 or 9 feet of water. And now I'm just starting to drag it. I don't feel as much cover where I threw this time, because I threw a little to the left, a little to the right of where I threw before. And there's definitely more cover to the left. But the great thing about the Carolina rig and fishing is I'm gonna make 3 or 4 casts, and I'm gonna cover the entire point. And I can tell you right where the rocks are, right where the brush might be. I can tell you right where the mud is. I can tell you where anything is on this point after about 5 casts, just kind of fan casting methodically. And with the Lowrance Ghost trolling motor, you got that anchor feature. I'm in one place. I'm not moving, so it's real easy to make those methodical casts. Cover that if you've got a different trolling motor. They probably has that anchor feature if you've got a newer trolling motor. If not, the best way to do that is to pull up to the point where you want to be, throw a buoy marker out, and keep your boat near that buoy marker. Then you can make those methodical casts and still be able to cover every square inch, and you're not wondering exactly where you are with that Carolina rig. So that's really how you're going to be fishing a Carolina rig. I'm telling you, it's worth all 3 knots that you have to tie. It is worth it. Now that's a different piece of cover. I pulled it along, and it was real kind of muddy. And then I came along to something that felt like a big slick log, because it kind of slid down it, and then it came up and came over it. That's kind of what that felt like. But again, I'm just kind of covering water. There's a little bit of something right there. It wasn't too much. This is kind of clay mud right where I am now on the point. It's kind of odd. I thought there was more cover here. I'm going to throw a little to the right, and then I'm going to throw back to the left, and we'll see if we can get us a bite on the quiver. Just bombing it out there. Once you get familiar with getting that bait back and then launching it, you can do more like I just did. Just kind of pull it back quicker, let the leader settle, and then zing it out there. But again, I've seen people, they work the Carolina rig way up here, That's a no-no. You're not gonna be in a position to set the hook properly. You're not gonna be able to feel as much as you can if you keep your rod tip down and you do those short side swipes. You can do it to the left if you need to, or the right. I don't feel quite as much as that way as if I go back this way. That's more of my power side, going this direction. And again, when you get that bite, the whole deal is just reeling up all of your slack until it gets tight, and then just kind of sweep set. That's the way to set the hook on a Carolina rig. We're gonna try one more cast to the left. There's not much out there on that right side. I didn't see much out there. It was really kind of muddy clay. One of the old secrets of the Carolina rig. Nowadays you got all these different technologies. Look, I can look over and see fish and this and that and the other, man. You still have to know how to find depths and catch fish old school ways, because when you put the old school ways and the new school ways together, that's where it's really at. Carolina rig, old school way to catch fish, but by golly, it still works. Now I'm on some real rock action right there. That's some goods right there. You can see it. I'm having to work the rod to get that weight through the rocks. Came over that big rock there. There he is. See how I just reeled up my slack? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I reeled up my slack. Just leaned into them, and you want to keep that steady pressure on them the whole way. Yeah, boy, come here. Ooh, pulling now. There we go. A little fatty. See it quiver, 4.5 on the Carolina rig equals little fatties. Look at this. Look at this. He's got a dent in his back. He ain't no holler back girl, but he's got a dent on his back. Whatever that means. So, that's cool. Carolina rig fish. We found us another one. He's pulling. Old sea rig is on fire. Decent fish. Oh, not quite as big as I thought he was. Oh, come here, buddy. Right in the top of the mouth. A little quiver is getting it done again. Another decent fish. That's two something. See, he doesn't have the mark on his back. Nice clean. Look at that. He's got dirt on his belly. He's laying right on the bottom. You see that? That's how you know that they're on the bottom. They'll have sometimes, especially in the wintertime, they'll get that dirt on their belly. See, it wipes off with my thumb. It's pretty wild, isn't it? Laying on the bottom, waiting for somebody to throw him a Carolina rig out there. Please, give me a Carolina rig. I want to eat it. All right, let's get back out there, buddy. See ya. More action here. Oh, got a smaller one. Another Carolina rig fish. That's a baby destroyer again. Folks at home, this is the same place. We just keep throwing on the same point. And there's a little school of them here. It's a little bit smaller one, but there's still plenty of fish here. Get back to see if there's another. Oh, he's got it. Get back and got it. Good boy. Oh yeah. Come to me. He's not a giant, but another fish on the Carolina rig. Baby destroyer right there. That's a GP3. I like that color a lot. Just another little keeper. I like that hybrid worm hook. I talked about it on talk about it on the, how to rig, how to tie a Carolina rig. That little hybrid worm hook, man, it gets them. It's a Gamakatsu G Finesse, but it's another little guy. Fun though. Here, watch it. Bye-bye. Okay, so as you can see, that's how you fish a Carolina rig. It's a great way to catch fish. You can catch a lot of fish. You can catch big fish. You can cover water. I mean, I've caught fish in various places on this one point, multiple fish. Haven't caught any giants here, but I have caught a lot of really big fish on a Carolina rig. I know of a ton of, 10 pluses caught on a Carolina rig. I've personally caught fish over 7 pounds in tournaments multiple times on a Carolina rig, so it's a great way to catch many fish and big fish, and that is how you fish a Carolina rig. That slow, sweeping hook set, just keep everything tight, and you should enjoy it.